Okay, so statute of limitations and whatnot. I'm not trying to get you in trouble with anyone for anything.
Yes.
But what happened here actually is that a lot of people I know had a history of, taking a thing or two in their past, and I asked for a volunteer just for one of those people to talk about it, and your hand went up the fastest. So I wonder what you can tell me about that time in your life, like from the perspective of you at that time. Like, what was going on?
Oh my God. What a great question. I feel like a lot was going on for me. The age that comes to mind immediately is being 19 years old and kind of like out there in the world on my own for the first time. And I'm thinking about the fact that whole time period was just like such a mix of like tumult and joy. Like it was simultaneously like one of the worst periods of my life and also like the most high in freedom. Yeah, so that was kind of the background radiation of what was going on. I lived in Philadelphia. I was being a little degenerate in a lot of ways. Yeah, I don't know how much I should reveal about my checkered past.
You don't have to tell me anything specific, but I was wondering if you could give an idea of like what kinds of places you were taking things from. What like if you don't want to name specific objects, like perhaps they're like cash value. Like what was this to you?
Yeah. It's weird. I feel like I never stole for a reason. Like I was basically just like in it for the ability to make things happen that I wouldn't otherwise be able to make happen, and then sometimes literally just for the vibes. Like I stole a banana from Wawa. That was like the last thing I ever stole. I think that's how that's like my strongest theft memory, because it was the time that I got caught was stealing a 79-cent banana from a Wawa.
Who caught you?
The woman who worked there. She just like saw me slip the banana into the sleeve of my oversized leather jacket and very kindly was like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And I was just filled with shame and embarrassment. I was like, "No."
Oh, wow. And that was the last time. Was it because of that feeling that was
I just never
time?
did it again. I think I was already over it, if that makes sense. And then it was just this like literally one piece of resistance was presented to me by reality. And I was like, all right, never mind.
I don't want to put anything on you that isn't there. I simply want to theorize something and see how you respond. I wonder whether it had something to do with the concept of rules and like who gets to make rules and who gets to enforce rules. And could you tell me about
this is so
that?
real. Yeah. And it's the first day of Aquarius season.
Yes.
I won't make this too much about astrology, but I was not good at rules as a kid. I actually love structure and I love rules. I've realized as an adult, but I want to be the one who picks them and decides like which ones I'm going to submit to. And having external ones that I'm not deciding about really upsets me and has upset me historically. And I think becoming a young adult was this wild experience of just looking around and suddenly realizing that actually my sense that all rules were arbitrary throughout my entire childhood was actually like pretty true. And that there's just like not necessarily this like objective morality that's being kind of like handed down from like the top down level, but it's actually just like shit that people have agreed on. Some of those people were like really dumb and like some make obvious sense. Like we don't like murder most of the time. Seems pretty bad some of the time. But then some of the time, like maybe murder. you, you know.
Well, maybe it's not called that if it's that, like that's
Right.
where you get into the real weird stuff about the legality of things, is like certain killing a guy in certain situations is one thing, but killing a guy in another situation is something entirely different.
Completely. And that is actually just vibes based, like low key, like actually.
Yeah.
But which is interesting. Obviously there's a lot of structure to those vibes, but still. So anyway, I think I'm 19, right? I'm like realizing, and I couldn't stop realizing, that things are not as they seem. Yeah. And I did have an immediate first reaction to that where I was just like, I don't think I have to do any of this shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like one thing that like really stands out in my mind as like evidence of this is I went through a pretty rigorous like middle to high school experience, like academically, all for this goal theoretically of going to like having access to going to like, Ivy League schools, or like getting to be able to do whatever you might wish to do in the future.
Mm-hmm.
That was the whole goal of my education. And I was terrible at this in a lot of ways. I just like couldn't get out of bed for school. I couldn't go to class. I couldn't do my homework. I just fucking hated it.
Mm-hmm.
It was ruining my life for years. It was ruining my family's life, trying to like enforce these rules to make me do it. Ultimately, this ended in me like being like a homeless teen at like 17,
Mm-hmm.
because it would just create so much conflict. I was expelled from 2 schools, and it was just horrible, like literal, like so much tumult from like every authority figure in my life at me and back from me, resentfully, angrily at them.
Mm.
And then I just like got into college anyway. Like nobody ever asked to see those high school transcripts. It was just like, I like went to 1 semester of community college in Philadelphia, like literally on a whim.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I'm not doing enough shit. Like, I'm bored. I'm going to take a women's studies class and a philosophy class. And so I did. And then I just fucking transferred to Temple with those credits. And that was it. That was the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was one of my first like experiences of being like, oh, I'm not just like a rebellious idiot. Like, I was actually right. Like, I didn't have to care about any of this. Like, my internal censors of telling me that this didn't matter to me and wasn't important to me and didn't need to be prioritized at all. Like that was just accurate.
And then the age that you went to in the stealing story was after that.
Yes.
So it was like nothing mattered anymore.
Right. Yes.
Like rules wise.
Yeah, basically. And it just didn't even occur to me that some rules were good, actually, if that makes sense, because my experience of being exposed to them was just garbage. I had the same experience with I used to do graffiti. I would spray paint like all the time over everything, 0 fucks. And then I got arrested by a police officer, and he was like, fuck you. Like literally, like I was like sitting on the curb handcuffed, and he was a local man to Philadelphia and was like, fuck you. Like, you're not from this neighborhood. Like, you literally just like live here. You moved here like assumedly recently, and you're just like trashing the place. Like, go fuck yourself.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was just like, damn, like that's legit.
That's like
That
real
is what I'm
police work
doing.
right there. Like the human
Honestly,
being was actually dealing with you.
It was so much. Yeah, exactly. He was literally like, this makes me personally fucking mad. And like, that's what this conversation is about.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, that's so real. Honestly, fuck me.
I mean, it seems pretty tied up in who makes the rules and what power they have over you. And like the rule makers that you were having the most trouble with in this story were like very close to you, and you were very accountable to them. You had a lot of responsibility to them. And
Yes.
like that kind of shifts around all over the place when you leave home and you go to college and you're out on your own. Like you said, like that was how you started your story. It was like you were living on your own. Like you weren't accountable to people in the same way.
Right.
And you know, that's the difference between like a good police encounter and a bad police encounter is like whether you respect the authority of the human being.
Right.
Or
Which I did not until he started talking to me like a human being.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like was like the difference in like between, I think the difference for me between like rules that when I started realizing that like basically what happened was I had like I was the person in power to be the person that, the school called home to, as it were. Like, as long as it were somebody else, like, really, I that was just like, fuck you guys, basically. But like, the minute the school called home to me, and it was like literally me talking directly to a police officer, or like me having to like go to court for like doing graffiti, and like consequences started to like pile up, and the only person they were getting the emails was me. There was no like other person who was just like, I'm really disappointed in you and this is impacting our personal relationship.
Yeah.
It was just like me having to deal with a bunch of logistical bullshit.
Yes. Your favorite
and
thing.
I was like, exactly. And I was like, oh, these consequences are actually effective. Whereas that was not the case when it was all about like leverage social goodness, which was my experience like being punished and receiving consequences as like a teen.
Like it was secondary to like an actual relationship.
It was like people were like upset with me, and that was the thing I was supposed to care about.
Yeah.
And I was like, but you could just not be upset with me and realize that like the structure is the problem.
Yeah. Right. But when it was direct, the importance of that structure started to make sense.
Or at the very least, I was like, I do not wish to go to war with the structure.
Right. Yes.
Because that would be a lot.
Yes. That's a lot to take on. Forgive me if this is too like hard of a swerve, but I am very tempted to ask about magic now.
Okay. Yes. Good. let us ask about magic
because it seems like, I mean, it's not even just magic in general. It's like in your kind in particular, and its relationship to self-reliance and authority and true will, right? And it was like not until that got implicated that you started to see the like utility of the structure, as opposed to it's just like a priori like importance to society.
Yes.
And you engaged with it then for the sake of the outcomes. And that just feels very magical to me. I'm wondering if those pursuits have anything to do with each other. Like the shaping up of your checkered past and your development of like a ritual practice.
Yeah, it kind of lines up time-wise anyway. That's for sure.
Because it has a lot of rules too.
It does. It has a lot of rules, but I don't follow most of them. So it's not necessarily true. I follow some of them. But again, it's like kind of high key the ones that I have run up against the utility or lack thereof of.
Right. Yes.
But I have the exact same strategy where it's like I will sort of lean towards assuming that a rule is potentially arbitrary until I see its like utility, and that usually involves consequences. It's not a way I recommend to learn, but it is unfortunately the way I learn. But I think that thing where I'm like, it's like, okay, I'm like railing against these like limitations and structures, but I actually want to like break free out of the boundaries of what I've been told is and isn't allowed. Like, like I want to be able to take a bottle of wine from Safeway, even though I'm 17, right? Like that's what I want. Like, yes. Like I want to be able to like have a pocket knife, even though like my mom won't let me. So I'm gonna steal one from fucking Target. You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to like shift reality slightly using magical ability. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so like I'm gonna do it in the way that's available to me. And my culture insists that magic is fake, largely. By my culture, I mean like vaguely like Christo-Protestant white America. Like they're pretty set on magic being fake.
Yes. So you have to bend the rules of that society.
Right. You have to be like, I wonder if this is bullshit, and then just like try.
The thing that begs to be brought up here, though, for me, is the relationship between all of this and right and wrong. with like capital R, capital W, the like metaphysical concepts of right and wrong, which I'm not positing as real necessarily, but just like
Sure.
there's like another level that comes down to our level in the sense that like we know at some level when an act is wrong or right to some degree of certainty. And I feel like one of the most confusing things about being like a religious person is the relationship between the rules and right and wrong, which is obviously not one-to-one in a lot of cases, right?
Totally.
So where does like right and wrong figure into your lifelong tendency to exercise your true will and bend the rules?
Oh, man. Yeah, this is a really broad question. I want to like get my brain around it. Because it's like good.
If it's too broad, I could just ask you whether you believe in metaphysical concepts of right and wrong.
Oh, God. I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. Ahura Mazda is just like asserting itself in my brain so hard right now,
Okay.
which is like basically in Zoroastrianism, he is like the guy, right? He's like the wisdom lord is like kind of what his name means. And I think about him a lot when I'm trying to like figure out how I feel about dualism, right? Like the like sort of like religious dualism where it's like like some things are like of God and some things are like not of God. Like some things are fucking bad.
Yes.
And I think the things that you have to do with your brain to understand the problem of evil, like why does fucked up shit happen in reality if you also believe in God, the shit you have to do with your brain to make that work is like so much extra labor when you could just believe in evil. And it appeals to me in this way. Now, like, don't get me wrong, I am actually doing the hard way. Like, I'm doing it the like fucking like convoluted, like Jesus fucking Christ, I don't know why the problem of evil exists. Like,
Yes.
like head in hands, like philosopher crisis.
Yes.
That is actually the path I've chosen. But also, I kind of fuck with hard dualism in this regard, where it's just like, oh yeah, like your friend died young, evil.
Yeah.
Like that was just like the bad God one. Like we tried, but it didn't work. That was Angra Mainyu. You know what I mean? Not Ahura Mazda. Like we're constantly fighting, and he just won that round, and that fucking sucks.
So who's behind stealing a banana from Wawa?
Ahura Mazda.
Why? What does Ahura Mazda want with the banana?
I don't know. Yeah, this is, I don't know. It's like he wants me to learn, like he wants me to stop stealing in a low consequence way. Like he wants like token, like hilariously like token levels of inconsequential, right? Like 79 cents banana. Out of all the shit that I ever stole,
Yeah.
it was probably the least significant ever.
Yeah.
And like by the grace of Ahura Mazda, this very nice woman, you know, like hit me just the right chiropractic way to be like, you don't actually need to be doing what you're doing. Like, this is dumb. And you know, who fucking knows? Like, did I avoid a greater ill fate later by that? But we get into problems when we start attributing every single thing to the good deity.